All right. All right. I think we are in here.
All right.
What's good? All right. We've got,
I was just
hopefully,
watching the end of your Twitch.
thank you. We've hopefully got a few viewers in here. I tried to drag them over from my Twitch account first, and also I think this will be a smooth way to do the NFL draft party show, which our friend Pat may pop in for, but will not be a main piece of. But hey, you may be able to get his thoughts on the Raiders have a first round pick, right? They must. Yeah, they have like the 7th pick. So we can potentially get your thoughts on that at some point. So yeah, guys, we're here for a quick little Q&A, 5-10 minutes, whatever you guys want to do, and then we will officially start the podcast shortly after that. But yeah, fire away for either Pat or me or both, and we're happy to oblige. Let's see what we got in here for comments so far. Opinion on Quinnipiac. Yeah, Connecticut's dominating the sports world lately. Connecticut's college sports runs through Connecticut. It's a beautiful thing. Let's see what's going on. Brandon Spencer, we met at DIA. What's up, man? This guy I ran into at the Denver airport. That's awesome. Let's see. What do you think the Giants will do this season? Pat, we don't really have any Giants on the show, so we can give a little Giants prediction. How do you think they're building on the playoff appearance, or you think they're going to kind of come back down to earth a little bit?
I definitely see a similar outcome. I think they'll be in the conversation again. You look at it, bringing back, basically the same core of the team. I feel like, oh God, they brought in somebody that I'm blanking on badly right now on offense.
Darren Waller.
That can't be good. Of course.
Your boy.
My boy. I'm just having... Yeah, getting a guy like Waller. Oh, and they got like Paris Campbell too and stuff. Yeah, you know, I like that kind of group. Obviously, you're banking on guys like Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard to still stay healthy. But it's clear that Brian Dable's got a vision in Buffalo, in New York. It works. The guy knows how to get the most out of what he has. He did it with Josh Allen. He did it with Daniel Jones last year. Tough division for sure. But with the 3 wild cards, I definitely think that if they're not a wild card team, they'll be one of the teams right there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're they're not really built to compete for like Super Bowl level type thing anytime soon, which is like the logical next step that you hope for after you make the playoffs unexpectedly. You want to keep building. I think they're doing a good job improving on things, but I just don't know that anything beyond a playoff win or a miracle would be 2 playoff wins is really in the cards for them. But who knows? Could be wrong. What else we got here? BenchwarmerBran 2 waving at me from Twitch. What's up, man? Here from TikTok. What's up, Anthony? Guys, for anybody who is on TikTok actually right now, if you want to go to Twitch, twitch.tv/heavysports is one of the places that you can check out the podcast. We're still answering your questions here for a few minutes. Thunder to the championship. No. Okay, moving on. Let's see. CTOD Go says, so Pat, with the word there's 6 teams interested in trading up with the Cardinals at 3, do you think there's a likely chance that the Raiders are one of those 6 teams? So that's why he targeted it at you.
So I targeted me? No, because I saw, I forget who reported it today, but there was the reports that the Cardinals, their asking price is just astronomical, which honestly is it should be. If that's what's going to happen, where we could possibly have quarterbacks going in the top 4 picks, the asking price is going to be astronomical, especially when Arizona could get a guy like Anderson there at 3. And I don't think the Raiders, particularly need a quarterback, I think they're probably going to be content staying at 7 and probably getting a guy like Devon Witherspoon. I don't think they need to do that for the price for a quarterback that's not going to play this year. But I would be shocked if Arizona picks at 3. I'd be more shocked if it's Vegas that's picking at 3.
Yeah, to me, there's a big 2 at quarterback this year, and if you're not getting one of them, it's not really worth trading the farm or trading a lot of assets to move up for. Like if you're trading up to 3, it's probably for a quarterback, and that means it's probably for Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, and it's like, I don't know. I think those are guys that you kind of stand pat and take and, see where it goes rather than trade a bunch of assets for.
Yeah, obviously, like Mahomes is. You can't compare any of these guys to Patrick Mahomes, but he's the only guy I can remember that has been worth it to take in those top 10, 12 picks that you fully are expecting to not play. Like, I especially with all the other talent in the top 10, I can't justify, unless you really need a quarterback. It's hard to justify taking a guy that you have zero intentions of playing this year.
Right. Let's see. We got does Will Levis deserve to? Oh, I can actually put it on the screen. Does Will Levis deserve to be banished from the NFL for putting mayo in his coffee, bro? First of all, he did that. Oh, you didn't see this?
No.
Yeah, he put. So I don't know if it was a one-time thing for a joke that got blown out of proportion. I think he's insinuated that might have been the case. But yeah, he's drank coffee with mayo in it, and he recently bit into a banana with the peel on it. So I don't know what kind of attention this kid didn't get as a child that he feels the need to do this. But should he be banished from the NFL? In short, yes.
Yeah.
I really got nothing else to say about that. I don't know of any other player that has a weirder food habit. Like Tom Brady had some weird food habits with like not drinking coffee or never eating a strawberry or something. But like mayo in the coffee is OD ridiculous. So, yes, ban him 100%. Let's see. Just got a new puppy. Over under how many times she pees in my apartment tonight. Line is at 1.5. That's a bold line. I'm taking over.
Hammer the over.
Hammer that over. Well, I don't know what sportsbook.
It's 2 times. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know what sportsbook I can get that line on, but I'm going over it. All right, what do you rank these quarterbacks? Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes. I think to me it's for me it's clear at least. I go Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. I just take the reverse order of what he put. I think it's not that it's each guy is way better than the other. It's just that it's very clear that each guy is slightly better than the next. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I would maybe I agree with your rankings, but maybe put Allen over it. But at the end of the day, like I think Allen's got more skill and talent, but he's just shown that he doesn't get it done, as opposed to Burrow, who maybe is a little less talented but knows how to get it done when it matters.
Yeah, I think Allen had such a not a rough end of the season, but by his standards, he was making a lot of mistakes at the end of last year, and they're just mistakes that Burrow does not make. Could those mistakes have been related to an elbow injury that was worse than we were led to believe? Possibly, yeah, but we have to go off the information that we have, and the way Burrow's been playing, Burrow was inching toward being possibly the best quarterback in the league in public perception at a certain point last year. So I think one thing I can confidently say is that these 3 are the best quarterbacks in the league, the top 3. But all I'll say is this. Watch out for Trevor Lawrence. He's coming. He's coming for this top 3 at some point. Whether it's this year or next year, he's going to make another step forward. What is your favorite UConn title run or UConn team? Team is this one. This past one was so much fun and just so well-rounded. We talked about it last week. But favorite title run, really hard to put anything above 2014 for me. I mean, they had no business winning that title, and yet they just decided at the right time, hey, we're going to be better than everyone else and have the best player in the tournament, which is Shabazz Napier. So I got to pick that one.
I'll give a little love to the 2011 team as well. Obviously, real nice we get to talk about 3 championship runs since 2010. But, you've got guys like Kemba Walker. You've got young Ryan Boatwright. Shabazz, young Shabazz as well, I believe.
Yep.
And, like, Jeremy Lamb was Andre Drummond, was a top pick. So, in terms of, pro talent or, true talent, I think that was probably the best team.
Yeah.
But I think this year was like the perfect combo. Like, really a lot of good players. Not quite as an improbable run of 2015, but still a lot of fun. But yeah, all three have a different place in my heart for a different reason.
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys on this team from this past year, it's going to be the team that kind of reloaded the NBA with UConn alum. And I mean, how impactful of players will there be? I think Hawkins and Klingon are both going to be somewhat standout or at least solid rotation players in the league. And then you've got guys like Caravan and Jackson who are going to be good bench role players in the league at some point, whether they enter the draft. Caravan's not, but if Jackson enters the draft this year or next, those guys will be around for a while. And I just love watching this team and those guys develop. And we're probably going to have, some of these freshmen coming in are going to end up in the league as well. So watch out. There's going to be a UConn restock.
Castle is absolutely a league player.
Yeah, Stephon Castle could be potentially one and done, so we will have to keep an eye on that. Tristan Newton may also come back too, so have a little veteran and young guard combo there. That'd be a good time.
Did you
right.
know Naheem Aline is dating, who is it, Nika Mule?
Nika Mule, yeah. I didn't know that, but I found it out
I found
2 days ago.
Yeah, very recently. And it was funny because, I remember Aline was like, oh, Newton got how many assists? Man, he's out here like Nika Mule. And then, one of the girls on the girls' team said that, oh, Mule's out here making threes. Who is she, Naheem Aline? And it's like, okay, these pieces
make sense
the year
now.
all fit together now. So maybe Naheem, you got to stick around, Naheem. Come on back.
Oh, Naheem is coming back. He announced already he's coming back.
Oh, he announced that. Oh,
yep.
God.
Naheem.
My head is in the cloud.
No, you're good. I only happened to find it off of a random article. It wasn't majorly publicized, but yeah, Naheem Aline and Samson Johnson actually are both coming back. So, and Tristan Newton is thinking about it. So that one will permeate, bigger news if it happens. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. I think, guys, we are ready to hop into the actual podcast. So thank you guys for your questions. Let me get our little animation ready so we know where our cutoff is. All right. Here is, hold on. Get this question out. Hide current comment. Goodbye. All right. So off the bench starts when I say it starts. Let's go. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Off the Bench podcast. Brandon Carney alongside Pat Gustafson. Finally, don't have college basketball to talk about, which I am a little bit sad about, but we can get back to the heart and the soul of what this podcast is. We've got plenty of NFL news to talk about, believe it or not, a couple of developments since our last show, even though our last show was only a few days ago. And then at the end, toward the end, we'll be talking about NBA as well, NBA playoff predictions. Play-in games are set to start today, I think is the first, or tomorrow. Sorry, today's Monday. Tomorrow we've got a couple games. So as of the time you guys are listening to this, it will be in this evening.
Yeah,
so we've got play-in games kicking off, and then the actual playoffs will start, I believe, on Friday. So we're gonna have our predictions for that. But otherwise, we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We've got some wide receivers making some noise. We've got some draft stock check-ins and some good fits for, in my opinion, the skill players in this year's draft. I don't dig too much into the weeds of whether these offensive linemen are better than these offensive linemen and D linemen and stuff. But what I can talk about is skill players, where I want to see those guys end up, especially for fantasy football purposes. So we'll be talking about that. But first and foremost, Pat, the saga is finally over. Odell Beckham Jr. signed with someone. We could end it there and be happy, but he signed with the Baltimore Ravens, which to me, one of the more interesting places he could have ended up just because of the implications. I'll start here. Should I start with, do we think this means Lamar's coming back? All right, first of all, no, we'll start here. What was your take on the money? Because this seems like a lot of money for Odell.
Well, who is it that he was planning to meet with? He was planning to meet with someone else, but then apparently Baltimore upped the ante, and it was something that he couldn't turn down. So even from those standards, it might be a little bit above market value. We're talking about a guy here in OBJ who at one point an elite receiver, but we're a long way removed from that. We're looking at a guy who was terrible in Cleveland, and whether that was him or the QB situation or just them being a miserable franchise. And he had a nice little run in Los Angeles, but even then, that was a really high octane offense with a lot of different decoy types of guys out there and now he's had a major surgery, and he's 30. So it's like, I think this whole saga has been completely overblown, because we're talking about a guy who just may not be all that impactful anymore. We don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's weird. That amount of money shocked, I think, everybody when you found out it was $15 million guaranteed with incentives that could get it up to $18 million. Because initially the report was up to $18 million incentive-laden deal. And it was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's probably, he's probably getting like 3 to 5 million, baseline. And then he hits 1,000 yards somehow, he gets another 5. No, he's getting 15. And then there's some things in there that could get him up to 18. I do think it's crazy. We are talking about a guy coming off 2 ACL surgeries, and he hasn't been a Pro Bowler since 2016. I feel like, look, if Odell didn't make that catch back in the day with the Giants, like, I feel like that catch has almost made his career. And I think I've talked about this a few months ago too. But it's like he's just an icon more than a productive player at this point. And look, maybe he proves us all wrong. But to me, this price tag is very, very strange with the Ravens. I don't know if it's just pure frustration on their part for not being able to find, draft, and develop good receivers. I mean, they've run through so many the past few years that have not worked out. Miles Boykin, James Prochet. I mean, these guys, it's just not happening. And I'm sure they know that that's part of the reason Lamar is frustrated. Like Lamar, the best receiver he's played with is Hollywood Brown, who had Butterfingers half his tenure in Baltimore. So they're trying. I don't know if it's kind of a futile effort at this point or a desperate effort going after a guy like Odell, but I do appreciate that they're trying. They're not just going to go into next year with, Rashad Bateman and me and you starting at receiver. So that's a good start. But I do think based on Lamar and Odell's relationship, I mean, apparently they FaceTimed like right after the signing or just before or something around that time period. I do think this leans me toward Lamar coming back. And I know you were already on that train. We talked, recently about whether we thought he was staying or going. I was leaning toward going just because it was such a mess. But I do feel like if these guys have a tight relationship, Lamar's going to come back confident that he has weapons, because we could say what we want about Odell. I'm sure that Lamar is going to think like, oh, Odell's got so much left in the tank. Like, we're going to run this and we're going to be great. I think Lamar ends up back in Baltimore now.
Actually, Ian Rappaport did a hit probably within the last 2 hours on NFL Network saying that Lamar was actively recruiting Odell and that apparently he plans to be throwing him the ball this year. So I guess that kind of squashes that whole thing. And my reason why I thought he was going to stay is just because I couldn't see another situation, and I couldn't see the Ravens saying, "Yup, you know what? We're just going to roll with Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley." Like I just couldn't see a situation in that. So definitely a good situation for Odell in terms of football and fantasy. Plenty of targets available there outside of Mark Andrews. So if he's going to succeed, this is probably his best opportunity to be the guy in an offense.
Yeah, Odell is going to be one of the most polarizing fantasy football picks, I think, possible, just because his range of outcomes is so wide, knowing that what he can be, and this will be the best quarterback he's played with in years, ever, probably.
Ever.
I mean, he played
MVP.
Yeah, I mean, he played with Stafford in LA, but like that was as the third or second fiddle. So I mean, he's going to go and be the number one receiver at the very least. So yeah, best quarterback he's ever played with, assuming Lamar comes back. And it's just a matter of, can he hold up? I mean, hopefully the surgeries did their job, and we could see a full season of Odell, before he has to hang him up for good, because it's been a while since we've seen that peak Odell, and his super productivity got cut shorter than we thought it would when he first started his career in New York. Got another receiver that made pretty major headlines, very surprising to me. Tyreek Hill says he is set to retire after the 2025 season. He wants to play out his current contract with the Dolphins and then hang it up. He said there's a lot of things he wants to do in his life. One of them, potentially being in the coaching side or the broadcasting side of things. Tyreek Hill, I don't know if you know, has a Twitch account where he streams pretty consistently and is actually a very entertaining and engaging dude. So look, Tyreek Hill is going to have a lot of avenues to do whatever he wants after football. But Pat, were you surprised by this news? Because I sure was. This is the kind of guy that you've got speedy players like Tyreek Hill. You look at a guy like Deshaun Jackson, whose career has extended so many years just because he has a weapon that not a lot of players can say they possess. Tyreek Hill's a guy that could have played to 36, 37 years old and probably been at least a gadget productive player. What was your reaction to this?
Well, and especially, you say Deshaun Jackson to compare the two. Hill is just a much better player than Deshaun Jackson ever was.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah, I was really surprised to hear this too, because, here's a guy we're talking about, hasn't really had many injury problems, but, I guess sometimes we've seen a new trend where some of these guys just might want to preserve their bodies, at a younger age. How old is Hill now?
Tyreek Hill is 29 years old.
He's 29, so you think about it, by then he'll be 32. It's like, that's not like young, but it's still definitely, he's at least got 3 more years than that. But the other thing you forgot to mention too is now he also runs track still. Like he was in a track.
Yeah.
So realistically, that's a lot less demanding on the body. He can go into broad. You're right. He does. he does. For a guy who has obviously had some scars in his past, he seems to be a pretty likable guy. So I think, he's got a lot of avenues, but. And, maybe he'll change his mind. Maybe he'll play out his contract. So many guys have said that, hello, Aaron Rodgers, hello, Brett Favre, have said like, oh, yeah, I'm going to retire at this point, and then they get the itch. So this could be a completely different story in 3 years.
All right. Let me see if I can pull up this video real quick here, too, that we've got. Okay, so obviously those of you listening on audio couldn't see that, but that was a student or a young guy burning Tyreek Hill. He won something for burning Tyreek Hill on a route. Tyreek was playing coverage, and hey, look, maybe if he's getting burned like that, maybe that's why he's hanging him up. But no, in all seriousness, you said, you might be able to, you might change your mind in a few years. Like, this could be a nothing burger with Tyreek Hill as well, but it does bring up an interesting conversation for fantasy football players, specifically dynasty fantasy football players, with what to do with Tyreek Hill. In theory, right now, you know that you have 3 more years of Tyreek Hill. So, Pat, I wanted to play a little would you rather. Would you rather own Tyreek Hill or these receivers in dynasty fantasy football? You're doing a startup draft today, or somebody offered you a 1-for-1 trade and you already own Tyreek Hill. All right, we'll start easy, or at least it's easy for me. Tyreek Hill or Chris Olave? 23 years old. I'll give you the ages too as we go.
It's because it's so hard because we're talking a top 3 receiver in the league. So you're basically looking at is 3 years of elite production greater than, maybe not as elite production for 10 years. And in this case, I think I'm going to go Chris Olave. He looks probably like the best of the. Well, no, Garrett Wilson, but I think Garrett Wilson's had a better situation. But Olave looked really good with poor quarterback play. He's a guy that I think is going to pop with Derek Carr. Whether it's Derek Carr in the long term, I think he's a guy that's kind of going to mold to anyone. It's tough to say, but again, I would go Olave.
Yeah, and I didn't even include Garrett Wilson because to me, so I actually made this list off of looking at Fantasy Pros Dynasty wide receiver rankings, and they actually already have Garrett Wilson above Tyreek Hill, regardless of this news, just because of how young he is and how good he looked. But Chris Olave is another one that, to me, it's easy. I'm going Chris Olave as well. He's 23 years old, man. He looked so good. To get Chris Olave for 10 years versus Tyreek Hill for 3, it's kind of an easy choice in my opinion. All right, a guy who wasn't quite as productive, but wasn't far off. 22-year-old Drake London. How do we feel about him or Tyreek Hill?
I'm going to go with Drake London again. We saw that Arthur Smith loves to run the ball, but he had a connection with Desmond Ridder. Once Ridder took over, we saw what London could do, and he was still a rookie, and so was Ridder. You get a full other year under those guys' belts. Even in run-first offense, even with Arthur Smith's, you still had your A.J. Brown, and Drake London could easily be that A.J. Brown and give me that potential over this short window.
I would agree. These young guys, it's hard for me to not pick them over Tyreek when Tyreek is 29 and, apparently only has these 3 years. All right, 23-year-old George Pickens, the latest in the crop of Steelers receivers that they just keep churning them out.
This was way closer than the other 2, I will say. I think Pickens and Kenny Pickett had a great rapport together. I think Kenny Pickett's only going to get better and better, and he's going to be the guy there. Give me George Pickens. Why not? And another guy, he's just like Tyreek. He's a home run hitter too. So yeah, we'll go. You know what? Screw it. We'll go George Pickens.
I agree. And look, to me, the only way that you're picking Tyreek Hill over these guys in this situation is if you are in your dynasty league's already established and you are in firm win now mode. You are not trying to take any pieces away from your title contending squad and you're going all in for the next 3 years. But even if you're doing that, these guys, it's not like these guys are going to sink your ship over the next 3 years. These guys like Olave, London, Pickens, they're only going to take steps forward. But I do see, how it maybe be harder if you're contending. But either way, I'm going with these young guys. All right, we're going to go not as young, but guys who are going to have more years ahead of them than Hill if he does hang them up after 3 years. 26-year-old new Chicago Bear, DJ Moore or Tyreek Hill.
Not much thought here, Tyreek Hill. I think the thing with Moore is this guy really that good? Like,
It's starting to become a real question. It
he's
is,
a guy
as much as I hate to say it.
Is a great volume guy. He's a good wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but is he ever truly going to break through to be one of these top tier or even second tier wide receivers? Like, I feel like he's like the epitome of like a B tier wide receiver right now. And it's like, can he break through? And again, it's not like we're talking about DJ Moore like this and he's 23 years old. You know, he is 26. And I just think that 3 years of elite production, I don't know if DJ Moore's ceiling is as high as the other three. So I honestly, not much thought to this one. Give me Tyreek.
I'm with you. I think DJ Moore's a guy that I've given a lot of leeway to because of the quarterback play and the guys that he's had to play with in his Panthers career. But at a certain point, too, you have to put yourself on the map no matter the quarterback play. I mean, we watched DeAndre Hopkins suffer for years with the likes of Brock Osweiler and Tom Savage. And while we always knew there was another gear he could get to if he played with a halfway decent quarterback, we at least saw, a portion of that gear beforehand. And DJ Moore is just not really showing that. He's a guy, if you own him in fantasy football, you've known he's a pain in the ass to own because he's going to go for 2, 3, 27, and then 4, 3. It's just a nightmare. So I'm with you. I go Tyreek Hill. All right, similar-ish to DJ Moore sort of outlook, in my opinion. 25-year-old Michael Pittman Jr.
I'm thinking a little more than I did last time, but I'm going to go Tyreek.
Okay.
I'm going to go Tyreek. I just, again, real quarterback instability in Indianapolis. So, again, we could not, maybe this new guy the Colts draft, him, Michael Pittman could be like this, and we're talking a different story. A lot of talent there, but I just haven't seen quite enough yet to put him over Tyreek in that.
Yeah, we hoped that the Matt Ryan signing would at least help Pittman a little. It didn't. So it has not come to fruition yet what Michael Pittman could be. But again, similar to DJ Moore, it's like at a certain point you got to see something. I don't know how much we've seen with Michael Pittman so far that would make us prefer him over 3 years of Tyreek Hill, knowing that this much from Pittman could be all we get for the next several seasons. And at that point, he's your wide receiver 3 or 4 at best.
I had a lot of Michael Pittman in fantasy. He was probably one of my more.
I wanted him a lot. I just didn't get him a lot.
And it was underwhelming. It wasn't terrible. Like, he had some good weeks, but, there were a couple teams where, I'm in the playoffs and Michael Pittman's sitting on my bench. And it's like a guy who, seemed to be in the 3-4 round range. That doesn't cut him.
Similar tier, similar age, 27-year-old Terry McLaurin or Tyreek Hill.
See, I think Terry is better than Pittman and Moore.
But he's also older.
He's also older, and he also plays in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Disaster franchise.
If we're talking without the extension here, and we're talking that we have a free agent Terry in a year, or a guy who could easily request a trade, sure. But this guy's under contract. I got it pulled up here. He's under contract until 2026 possibly. And I don't necessarily believe in Sam Howell the way I believe in Desmond Ridder or Kenny Pickett. I think Terry's a great talent. Probably, no, I don't think he's the best talent we've been to so far, but I'm going to go Tyreek.
I think I'm going to go Tyreek as well. I think that the Commanders team, as well as it stands, has a few weapons that it's like things aren't always going to run through just Terry, even if, they find good quarterback play. I'm a big fan of Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel, I think, is still kicking around, or did Curtis Samuel sign somewhere else? Let me double check that real quick. I felt like I saw him sign somewhere, but maybe not. Double check for posterity's sake. No, still with the Commanders. Okay. So
loves the gadgets, man. Even going back to McCaffrey, the guy who was in love with J.D. McKissick. Now a guy like Samuel. It's an offense that's not in love with your prototypical wide receiver like McLaurin.
Yeah, I think things just have to break a certain way for Terry to become the guy that we want him to be. And quite frankly, as much as 27 isn't old, he's running out of time for that to happen, for him to be a super interesting dynasty asset, at least more so than 3 years of Tyreek Hill. All right, 28-year-old Calvin Ridley. This one, oh, wow, really? That easy for you? Okay. See, no, so here's where I was coming from with this, right? Calvin Ridley is obviously, let's take a look at all these receivers, not including Tyreek Hill. Calvin Ridley is tied to the best quarterback of this group by a mile. So you take a look at his age and you're like, okay, he's only 1 year younger than Tyreek Hill. He hasn't proven what Tyreek Hill's proven. But I'm like, yeah, you've got 28-year-old Calvin Ridley, but you may get at least five, I'll give him until 33 or 34, 5 or 6 productive years of him with Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback. I think it's enough to make it a discussion, but at the same time, when these guys do take years off from the league, you worry how they're going to come back and look. And that could burn a year in itself if it's this one.
The fact that he hasn't played in a year and a half, even dating back to before the suspension, he took some time off for mental health issues, and it goes, you never know if something like that could reoccur. We sure hope not, but
right.
It's not something you can completely ignore. And again, he's another guy where it's like all the potential is there, but what year was it? Might have been 2019 into 2020. Yeah, it was pre-COVID where like he was like a second round pick in fantasy, and he just didn't show a damn thing. And I think he's one of the more intriguing guys because great offense and again a lot of weapons, but I think that might help him. Like there's the Christian Kirks, the Evan Engrams, the Travis Etiennes, guys who might take a little attention off him. So who's not to say that he's going to succeed in Jacksonville, but just I don't know if he'll ever return to the guy that he never really even was to begin with.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he kind of got anointed as like the Julio Jones, next in line, and he just didn't turn into that. And it was surprising a little bit, and you're like, okay, let's give him more time to do it, and then all these issues started popping up, and now we don't know truly what he's going to turn into. All right, Pat, I'm sure you noticed on our little show sheet here that I had surprise player listed as our final would you rather with Tyreek Hill. Okay. I wanted to pose this one without you getting a chance to think about it because I think it's tough for a few reasons. 22-year-old Jameson Williams or Tyreek Hill. We have barely seen Jameson Williams on a football field. Do you take the Hail Mary?
Yeah.
You're going to pick Jameson Williams.
Obviously we're going to talk some NFL draft prospects later. We'll probably have some comparisons to Jameson Williams, but this guy is probably the closest player in the league to Tyreek Hill, maybe just in terms of his home run hitting ability. Like we're talking about a guy who ran for and caught a 40-yard touchdown in his cup of coffee in the league. Like the Lions are looking at it like they've got another draft pick with this kid. Mm-hmm. And he is just so explosive, and you just got to hope he bounces back from a full season from this ACL. But no, I'm a big fan of Jameson Williams, and that's really, really risky.
Yeah.
But I think give me, if we're talking them both retiring at 32, give me 10 years of Jameson Williams. What do you got there?
I'm also going to take Jameson Williams. I'm a little surprised you did because I know you're a little more play it safe kind of guy, but I'm going to go Jameson Williams. And look, could it come back to bite me? Yeah, I'm recovering from basically, how I have Bust Anonymous, the series? It's basically Upside Anonymous. I need to stop chasing guys for purely upside. You watched it tank my fantasy team this past year, strictly drafting guys who had the ceiling that they could be a top 5 receiver, but I kind of ignored the floor where they could be an outside the top 30 guy, and I ended up with a lot of those.
League. Like if you're playing best ball or dynasty, it's a different story. But if you're playing, Jameson Williams was a guy, even this year, even coming up this year, is a guy that I'm going to be very timid about in these standard leagues. But like Dynasty, Best Ball, things like that, give me Jameson Williams.
Yeah, it's just I'm still recovering from my Gabe Davis debacle and Juju Smith-Schuster debacle and just everything debacle. Look, a guy lucks into Cooper Kupp one time and then thinks he can just predict every receiver breakout for the rest of his life. I got to come back to earth this year. I'm coming for it. All right. That's our Would You Rather with Tyreek Hill. I think it's a very, very interesting thing to think about if you are a Tyreek Hill dynasty owner. Okay, moving on to an unfortunately way more serious topic. So this came about, I want to say around a month ago, a couple weeks ago. So Joe Mixon was recharged with aggravated menacing. Mixon allegedly pointed a gun at a woman on January 21st, the day the Bengals traveled to face the Buffalo Bills. The initial charge was dismissed less than 24 hours after it was filed, with authorities stating during the court proceeding that they reserved the right to refile the case upon gathering new information. They gathered new information. We don't know what that is just yet, but they've refiled or recharged Joe Mixon with this menacing charge. There was already some rumblings, Pat, before any of this off-the-field issue came up, that the Bengals could decide to move on from Joe Mixon given his age. Do you feel like this is the final nail in the coffin? Do you think the Bengals will move on from Joe Mixon, or do you think they should?
I don't know if they will or if they should, but I certainly think that they'll be a team that will be using a reasonable draft capital on a running back here. Because you look at like Samaje Perine's gone, and Samaje Perine is a very steady running back. Every time Samaje Perine came in for Mixon, he produced.
Yeah,
when he's gone. They don't really have. If they had a Samaje Perine sitting there, I'd say sure, let him go. But should they? Probably. Yeah, we're talking about another, a guy who also had the problem in college, that incredibly disturbing video. This is a guy who's already been given a second chance. And again, you see it happens. If a guy's really, really good, he may get more chances. But again, Mixon's another guy who it's been more of his potential than what he's actually shown. Obviously he'll go out there and score 4 touchdowns, and it's like, this guy's great.
That was wild.
But, he is, again, really just kind of I think he's more of a product of that offense, of a really strong offense. You may put him in a worse offense. He may not be as productive. So I don't think it would be the end of the world for the Bengals if they got rid of him. Will they? I guess we'll have to see what comes out of these charges, but I think there'll be a lot more clarity in a few weeks after the draft.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on them drafting a running back. Their depth chart right now behind Joe Mixon, it's just Chris Evans and Travion Williams. Even if they keep Joe Mixon and things are all goody-goody going into next year, they got to bring somebody else on board. I don't think they're going to be comfortable going into next year without, a safety blanket like Samaje Perine. One guy would not be remotely surprised to see end up in Cincinnati that there's already been talk of is Ezekiel Elliott. I think that's a guy that makes a lot of sense as a depth back for them. And would I be surprised if they moved on from Joe Mixon, got Zeke, and then a young back and kind of, had Zeke mentor the kid, whoever it may be, and, split touches however they see fit between those two? No, that wouldn't surprise me in the least. I don't know that a guy like Bijan Robinson, who's had probably the most fluctuating or widest range of outcomes in his draft stock that I've seen, I don't know if that's the kind of guy that will be there for the Bengals at like the 26th pick or whatever it is. But if he was, that's an amazing fit for them. They'd luck into it there. But yeah, they will draft a running back in some round, whether it's the second, third, fourth, who knows. And it'll be a guy who will have to be on our radar for fantasy football and for real life production purposes.
Yeah, I would say even a guy like better than Zeke would be Kareem Hunt because of his pass catching ability. I think he'd almost be a better complement, whether it's Mixon, whether it's a young guy, or whether it's Kareem Hunt.
No, it's true. I think this backfield is going to look drastically different when the Bengals suit up for their first game on week 1 as it does compared to how it does right now here on April 10th. As of right now, I'm going to predict that they move on from Joe Mixon. I think the fact that there was smoke there before any of this came out tells me enough, like not that they need an out. Like you can just move on from a guy. Nobody's going to crucify them for moving on from an aging-ish running back who hasn't been, supernova productive, but it's just another kind of reason to push him out the door. So I can see Joe Mixon ending up elsewhere. All right, lighter news. Travis Kelce's first pitch. We're going to show the video real quick for those of you watching. Hold on, let me just...
And he can throw a strike. Hopefully Patrick Mahomes gave him a few lessons before today's game. Here we go.
Okay, yeah. For those of you who haven't seen it, Travis Kelce threw out the first pitch and literally just spiked it maybe 10 feet in front of him. Pat, how does this happen? How?
I love the pump up. He's going crazy trying to get the crowd riled up and then just absolutely fucks it. Like it was just perfect. It was just so perfect.
It's awful. I need to find I wish I had the video. Maybe one of my friends does. I threw out the first pitch at a Yard Goats game in 2018. I don't remember how I swung that. I think I won some contest, but look, all I'm saying, dead red strike down the middle. It may not have been the fastest pitch in the world, but that bitch would have got taken over the fence if there was a batter, but that's not really the point. As long as I'm not spiking it into the grass. Travis, how do we allow this to happen, buddy? Like you're a professional athlete. I'm going to add the extra syllable for emphasis. Athlete. Get the ball to the plate, to the glove, to something other than you're killing worms out here. This is murder. All right. Moving on, because that was embarrassing. I can't talk about it anymore. A quick little draft stock check-in. Pat, as the draft moves closer, we're starting to hear some rumblings of these guys moving up and down. We talked about how Bijan, no clue where he could get picked. It could be top 10. It could be second round. We really don't know. But there are some couple guys we have here who their stock is notably moving, or at least people are talking about it. Jalen Carter being the first one. Jalen Carter is not taking meetings with teams outside of the top 10. Does that surprise you?
Yes. I
Really?
I understand being confident in yourself, saying like, oh, no worries. But like, if I was a guy like that, I would meet with any team that would want to meet with me. But that's just me personally, to learn new things, learn how these teams go. You get better throughout these interviews and meetings. And you also never know who could be trading into the top 10. Like, you're like, oh, so-and-so's picking at 20. They could be picking at 7. You just don't know. And also these red flags that have popped up with him. Like, I still think he's going to end up going in the top 10, but that is not nearly as a surety as it was 2 months ago when, I think Mel Kiper still has him as the top prospect, but that just doesn't mean he's going to necessarily go there.
Yeah, I mean, this was the guy that was talked about as potential number 1 overall pick when draft discourse first started, and then, we had some things pop up that made that not be the case anymore, and then just natural. We knew that a quarterback was probably going to end up being the first guy, but it was like if you were purely rating the players in the draft, a lot of people had Jalen Carter at number 1. I'm a little surprised by it because you just don't hear stories like this too often, but at the same time, I'm kind of okay with it. I mean, it's a guy that's probably got maybe a couple of guarantees from teams in the back end of the top 10 that it's like, look, if you fall to us, like, we're picking you. And so he's like, look, I'm not going to talk to this team at 11 or 12 unless, like you said, like, look, maybe some mystery team is going to trade up to number 6 and get him. At that point, team loves him so much, who cares whether he talked to him or not? Like, the guys get drafted. That's one of the most interesting things I found out just throughout my years as a sports fan. I remember when I first found this out, it was really interesting that teams will draft a player without speaking to them, without meeting them at all, ever, even in like the first or second round, NFL, NBA, whatever it may be. And the first contact they have with that team is just when they pick them, which I thought was wild. So I don't think that's what it's going to be with Jalen Carter. I think, look, he's just saving people a lot of time. The other guy here is Hendon Hooker. So Hendon Hooker is getting a little bit of buzz as potentially another first-round quarterback. So we've got 4 guys that we are expecting to be picked in the first round. Obviously, Young, Stroud, Levis, Richardson. Hendon Hooker could be the 5th. Pat, do you think that happens?
Yes. I don't know if it should, but I think it certainly will, just because you look at it from the perspective of it's just like in fantasy drafts, when you're playing, when the quarterbacks start going, guys get scared. If you're a team that needs a quarterback in the latter half of the first round, you're going to go. And Hendon Hooker seems pretty definitively the 5th best prospect behind this big 4. I think it was Mike Tannenbaum who had him going 5th to Seattle. It's like, let's pump the brakes here.
Let me just say here real quick, there's a reason Mike Tannenbaum is a TV analyst and a former GM. There's a reason for that. Continue.
And especially, it's mind-boggling. See, I honestly, if I had to, obviously we got a lot of ways to go here but I would probably guess him going 20 to Seattle at this point. The fact that they have a second pick. And, I was reading some scouting reports today, and the most frequent comparison I saw was Geno Smith. And it's like, well, who better to kind of mentor him than Geno Smith. And I think Seattle's a team that is good enough to where, they can afford to kind of sit a quarterback and use that capital, knowing they have the 5th pick that they'll either trade back or use something on. And they have enough needs, too, where they can do that. So that would be a good fit. I definitely think that he's going to go definitely in the second half.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think the Seahawks fit is really interesting because I've been touting Richardson to the Seahawks for a while just because we know that he's going to need development. So sitting behind a guy like Geno with that short-term contract, who's also a veteran, is just a perfect fit in my eyes. But yeah, Hendon Hooker's not a bad fit either because Hendon Hooker's a guy who literally will need the first year at least because he's still recovering from ACL surgery. That makes a lot of sense as well. I look down the draft and I see other teams that would make a lot of sense for him there in the first round. You've got the Minnesota Vikings, who could be getting sick of Kirk Cousins and at least want a guy behind him to maybe breathe down his neck, a high upside quarterback. That would make a lot of sense. And then just looking up and down here, I mean, who else? You got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even if, nobody else really catches their eye there, assuming the big four quarterbacks are gone. Pat, I don't know the logistics behind this. I don't know what team would take him to make this happen, but I have a bold prediction here for you on this podcast. I would set off alarms if I could. Hendon Hooker will be drafted above Will Levis.
Ooh.
Hendon Hooker will be drafted ahead of Will Levis. I don't know where. I don't know to who. All I know is that Levis feels like a guy. I'm not comparing him to Zach Wilson. I don't think he's a bust like Zach Wilson. But he's a guy like Zach where it's like teams might be hesitant with the lack of college production. They weren't hesitant with Zach because he had college production and it was just ended up being fraudulent. But I don't know. I think teams just might be hesitant with him, and it could lead to him falling. Somebody always falls in the draft that you don't expect them to, and that could be Levis this year. Give me Hooker over Levis, and look, Tannenbaum, as much as I don't want to ride his coattails, if he has him that high, at least I'm not alone. Like, I'll be wrong if I have to be wrong, but I'm going to say Hooker above Levis.
The thing with Hooker, injury aside, the thing that sets him kind of apart from Richardson and Levis, those guys are super high ceiling guys. And so is Hooker, but Hooker's got a much better floor. That guy had great accuracy, great completion percentage, and he's mobile. I think if he's not torn his ACL at the end of last year, we're talking about the guy who would be the third best quarterback in the draft.
I agree. So, and that's kind of where I'm at with him over Levis is like, if teams are willing to deal with, potential injury repercussions and, they see he is recovering well, reportedly, like there's nothing to worry about there beyond the usual, then, maybe they look at the tape, they look at the numbers, and they're like, yeah, this is better than the guy who only had, touchdowns in the teens at Kentucky in the SEC. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker because he played in the same conference and was better. So that would be that would be a lot of fun to see. I'm hoping that my prediction comes true so I can point to this and brag. Okay, skill player fits. We teased this a little bit a few minutes ago at the start of the show. So these are just some of my favorite fits for the most notable skill players, or at least the ones projected to be drafted in the first round. Pat, you can just tell me if you agree with these or have differing opinion as we go. All right, first of all, Bijan Robinson. I'm putting him with the Eagles at the number 10 pick. I just think embarrassment of riches for them. That makes a lot of sense. They've only got Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell. Let Bijan Robinson lead that charge, and let that team have just the most devastatingly frightening run game in the league.
Yeah, I think that's a better fit in Philly than some of these other guys who are a little more pass catching oriented, as they don't really need that, as that's kind of what Kenneth Gainwell does. I'm a huge Rashad Penny fan. He has shown when he's out there that he's one of the most productive running backs in the league. But like out of anyone, the guy cannot stay out there.
Yeah.
So I think he's a guy enough where like you may want to limit his touches. You may not want him to be the guy. And Bijan Robinson is the perfect guy to kind of put in as your one and have Rashad Penny be your 1.5, not even 1A, but more so like your 1.5.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll just have a deep running back room. And for a team that runs as much as they do, that's what they're going to want. And Bijan Robinson, I'm comfortable saying, is an upgrade over Miles Sanders. So that would be a nice fit there. Jahmyr Gibbs. Pat, I'm going to go with the Patriots here. And this would not be with the 14th overall pick. That feels too early. But Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that can potentially slide into the second round. Patriots are also, as we know, prone to just trading down in the first. So they could end up with a late 20s pick or early 30s pick in the second round. He's a Bama guy. He feels like an amazing complement to Ramondre Stevenson. It feels right to me.
And you look at it from the perspective of Bill loves his two running backs, especially one who could catch the ball. And I mean, that was Stevenson last year, and obviously that's not his I don't think that's what suits him the best. Mm-hmm. Stevenson, I think he would be much better in the Damian Harris role, kind of the more power guy you're kind of at the goal line. But
lost my camera. It's okay. We continue.
Another good one would be for him. I would say even Buffalo. Depends on how much you love James Cook, because Damian Harris is another guy that literally cannot catch the football. And if you think Jahmyr Gibbs is better than James Cook, then I think he would be another fit there too.
Yeah. For those watching visually, don't worry about the lack of camera. My camera has, in fact, died, but the audio is still rocking. So we'll just throw a photo over this for any clips later, and we'll be good to go. All right.
Now they're just looking at me now?
They're just looking at you, so smile pretty for the camera. Mine's just...
God. Can I stop mine, too? Two talking heads?
Oh, wait. Edit audio avatar. Hold on. Wait, I think I can add a picture. So pardon me one moment. This is going to be...
Add something funny.
Wait, I could add
fat brand pictures.
There's a picture of Austin Eckler in here for some reason.
Okay.
Let's do this. Hold on, this is an off the bench thumbnail picture here. Aha. Oh, it's only going to be tiny. Okay, that's fine, though. All right.
Good enough. You're here. You're here.
Good enough. I'm here in spirit. Okay. Jackson Smith-Njigba. So I'm going with Jackson Smith-Njigba to the Texans. I think this is a perfect weapon to help likely Bryce Young get off the ground here. And look, Bryce Young ends up being the number 1 pick. Then you got C.J. Stroud playing with a college teammate. So that's even more fun. I think going with a receiver at number 12, this team now only has, I believe it's Robert Woods is their wide receiver 1. Please tell me you're going to help out your new quarterback with something more than Robert Woods and Nico Collins. That's all I ask.
Yeah, and we're looking at, after years of just stellar wide receiver classes, this has got to be one of the weaker wide receiver groups in a long time, except Smith-Njigba. I mean, I think he could possibly end up being the only guy in the first round, or at least the only guy that truly deserves to be in the first round. I think if you're a team like the Texans, where you've got volume for him, you're going to say, hey, you are going to step in and be our wide receiver 1. I think he is the perfect guy to do that. He obviously overshadowed by Marvin Harrison Jr., and had the injury, but I think he's about as NFL ready as they come in Houston, especially they're knowing like Patriots are lurking at 14. 14 is it? Yeah. I think that's almost want to lock that in, like barring a trade up. I think he'll be a Texan as well.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll rip through a few of these. So we've got other receivers. Look, I'm not going to pretend to know the exact order these receivers are going to get taken in because I don't really think anybody does at this point. It's just kind of a big mishmash of guys. I'm just going to say some teams that I think will take receivers, and I'll attach some names to them in this case just for the hell of it. But I'm going to go with Zay Flowers to the Chargers. I think the Chargers could just use another little insurance wide receiver. Seems like one of, if not both of, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are hurt all the time, and then Herbert is left throwing to DeAndre Carter and Josh Palmer, who are not bad receivers, but like that's the kind of thing that, you lose an extra game or two because of that. You're in the AFC West, you're fighting in a loaded AFC overall. That can cost you, and I think getting another good receiver would help them a lot. I also believe
DeAndre Carter's a Raider now as well. So
yes, that would.
There goes your security blanket.
Exactly. So okay, you know what? That's a good point. Let me look at who would be the pairing now for the Chargers. I know Josh Palmer's still there, so it's just a matter of their other receiver. It would be Josh Palmer. Oh, dear Lord. Keelan Dawson, John Hightower? Say ye a
Wait, John Hightower, like, is that the same guy that was on, like, the Eagles? That had, like, a couple games with the Eagles?
Brother, this is an NFL podcast, and I don't like to hurt my credibility often, but when I tell you I've never heard of this dude in my life, I have no idea. John Hightower is an auto-generated Madden creative player, and I will not hear otherwise.
I'm correct. He was on the Eagles. He had he had a few games where he was at least somewhat relevant. Okay, I dig that. The only thing about him is that he's such a home run hitter, and you've kind of already got that in Mike Williams. But Mike Williams doesn't necessarily have to be that. He's a big dude. He's a guy that you could kind of be a possession receiver and throw it up to. So I don't think it would be too redundant there, but you look at it like Jameson Williams here. Any team could use a home run hitter, whether it's in a large volume capacity or simply to just be the home run hitter.
Exactly. And then I'm going to go with Quentin Johnston to the Steelers just because there's been a lot of talk that Quentin Johnston might be the best receiver in this class. And Pat, how appropriate would it be that a guy that we think might be the best receiver in the class ends up with the damn Steelers, because they do this all the time. They could use another receiver there along with George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, and it'll just help Kenny Pickett's development even more. This is one that's almost a gut call because I could just see it and being annoyed by it.
Yeah, that's a good fit because you look at a guy like Pickens, more of an explosive, big play kind of guy, and Johnson's the definition of a possession receiver, and oh God, who the hell are we talking about? Whoever we're talking about right now is huge.
Quentin Johnston.
Quentin Johnston, yeah, he's huge. He's like 6'5", I believe.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
So that would kind of fit perfectly. But again, with these wide receivers, especially nowadays with how deep some of these wide receiver rooms are, these guys that are probably going to go in like the second-ish round, I wouldn't be surprised if just about any team in the league took these guys. I think Baltimore is going to be a factor. They said how much they loved this wide receiver class. And like you said, outside of Odell now, who I'm still not a huge fan of, it's Duvernay and Prochet and Tylan Wallace. And it's just like they need more help. So I could see him being a factor there, or Jordan Addison, where you have him going. Nice.
Yes. Nice, very nice segue. Love it. Just like Paul Blart Mall Cop. All right.
Get me hang of this. I do look like him too.
Oh, a little bit. Jordan Addison is my next up. I got him going to the Giants. I think the Giants could obviously use another weapon on offense. They've added Darren Waller. That's a nice start. But I think getting a young, up-and-coming receiver makes a ton of sense to help Daniel Jones, who is a guy that they have now, locked down for a little while. So makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, you look at, they have improved, like I said before, they have improved that receiver room. But at the end of the day, these are guys who have glass bones and paper skin, like Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, and new acquisition Paris Campbell. These are guys who we like what we see when they're out there, but these guys are frail. So adding a young guy into that fold, even if he's not necessarily ready to go right away, that's a good spot.
Yeah, and then our final receiver, we'll get into some tight ends after this. I got Jalen Hyatt going to the Bills. So again, we mentioned home run hitters. Obviously, they have Gabriel Davis, who is essentially that and only that at this point. I mean, maybe he takes another step forward and develops his game beyond that. But Jalen Hyatt, very much a home run hitter type of player. I just feel like the Bills are kind of searching for something to make that offense just a little bit, maybe a gear above what they've been thus far, and having him as a third wide receiver instead of a guy I like Khalil Shakir. I think he can be good, but Jalen Hyatt, much higher pedigree as a player, just seems like something for big arm Josh Allen that would be very enticing.
Yeah, we've seen what he's done with guys like Isaiah McKenzie and I'm having a hard time remembering. They had a guy before, Marquise Goodwin, a guy who nothing, but then you'd see on Red Zone, it's like him catching a 70-yard dot from Josh Allen, and it's like, okay.
And remember, they brought back the corpse of John Brown to catch a touchdown too this year, and it's like, okay, you could just have a young guy do that instead.
And obviously Isaiah McKenzie's no longer there too, so I think that would be a good fit, especially if we're all ready to send Gabriel Davis to Siberia. Like I know.
Oh, bro,
I know many of us are.
I will not be drafting that man ever again. All right, got some tight ends here. So this could be one of the historic tight end classes in history. We may see a lot of them go in the first round. I've got 3 guys here who, as of now, are projected first or at least early second, but I'm going to keep them in the first for posterity's sake. Dalton Kincaid, I'm going to send him to the Green Bay Packers, a team that has just not had a tight end since Jermichael Finley. Obviously, it's not Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball there anymore. Well, as of right now, it kind of is, but eventually it won't be. It's going to be Jordan Love. Jordan Love's going to need a tight end. This is a team that, as much as they could use a receiver potentially as well, I don't think it's necessarily the biggest need. I would go tight end over receiver at this point there.
And you look at Kincaid, like he is basically a big receiver. I mean, these tight ends, these 3 tight ends we're going to talk about, they're all very different guys, which is what makes this class so interesting. And like we've said, Green Bay has just never utilized the tight end. Like the only tight end you feel like is Mercedes Lewis catching a phantom 2-yard touchdown every other week, but he's gone also. But maybe with Jordan Love in here, it'll usher in a new era of Green Bay tight ends. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and then other tight end needy teams potentially. I'm going to go with Michael Mayer here to the Bengals. So the Bengals are another team that it's like you had these crazy receivers. We all know about Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, but tight end, they've kind of been looking for an answer a little bit. I mean, C.J. Uzomah was productive while he was there. Hayden Hurst had some time there. Now they've got Irv Smith as their top tight end. And while I wouldn't be surprised to see them go into the season with Irv Smith as their one because they are wide receiver focused, why not put yourselves over the top? Why not get a guy like Michael Mayer? Get yourselves a name brand tight end who could turn into a superstar. And then, again, like the Eagles with Bijan Robinson, embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, I think he's probably my favorite tight end in this class, Mayer, just because he's got the receiving, he's got the blocking, he's experienced, and he's just kind of the whole package for a tight end, especially when we've seen rookie tight ends fall on their face time and time again, regardless of where he goes, whether it's Cincinnati. I know he's been linked to Dallas a lot. He seems like the quintessential Dallas Cowboy in the post-Dalton Schultz era. But I don't know if he's going to go before Kincaid, but I would personally take him before him.
Yeah, again, it's a little bit of a mishmash of we're not sure exact positional rankings on these guys. I think this draft is going to be really interesting because there's not a clear hierarchy at really any of the positions that people have been talking about the most. So, yeah, I've got him going to the Bengals. And the reason I didn't put the Cowboys, Pat, is Cowboys fans that I've seen, the ones that at least, aren't just crazy, they seem to like Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, and they seem to want to see what those guys have in them. And I would love to see them get a shot. yeah, I think Jake Ferguson, especially at times behind, Dalton Schultz, showed that he can be a starting tight end in this league. And at the very least, they have a combination of 2 tight ends who can be productive. So I don't know that they need to waste a first rounder on one. I think this is also, Cowboys would not surprise me if they took Bijan Robinson either if he was there, because Jerry loves toys. But for now, I'm going to say they don't take a tight end. They don't take a running back. What position? I don't know, but that's not part of this. Okay, final tight end, Darnell Washington. I'm going to send him to the Saints, Pat, and I know that they have Juwan Johnson. He's a guy I like a lot, but there's nothing wrong with having 2 solid, productive tight ends. And this was also just the last team kind of here at the bottom of the first round that I saw as being a remote fit for Darnell Washington. And just another guy to help out Derek Carr. And I think it would make sense if the top end receivers are gone and they can't grab another one.
Washington's a guy that I'm just not sure about. It was crazy watching those Georgia games. It's like, who is this freak of nature wearing number 0 that is just barreling these guys down? Like, obviously, physically, he's a top-tier prospect. He's so imposing on blocking, and, when he's got the ball in the open field. But similar, like, it almost reminds me of Dawson Knox, how Dawson Knox had 0 touchdowns in his career at Mississippi State. Washington just doesn't have the production that some of these other guys had. But it's like, are you going to bank on this guy just being such a good physical guy? You see this more in the NBA, where it's like, this guy didn't produce a lot in college, but he's got all the tools. And it's like, this guy has all the tools. He's a lot riskier than the last 2 guys. Another team that I think will probably be in the tight end game will be the Dolphins, considering I believe Durham Smythe is their starter, losing Gesicki. I could see a guy like Washington there. I probably think they need more of a receiving-oriented tight end rather than Washington, would probably be a little more of a hybrid blocker type of guy. But yeah, Saints a little redundant with Juwan Johnson, but it's like, maybe Juwan Johnson's just a fluke, a touchdown dependent.
Yeah, you never know.
I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. So that's what I've got as far as skill players in the first round. The positions, obviously, that I'm watching the closest, because as a fantasy football guy, I'm excited to see what guys I need to keep my eye on, particularly receivers who have an immediate impact in fantasy every single year. Not all of them, but there's going to be a few that are really, really good at some point, potentially at the start of the year, if not after just a couple games. Okay, real quick, Pat, we are running a little long, but that's okay. NBA. So I just want to talk about, a little bit of playoff predictions, but first and foremost, the Minnesota Timberwolves are a complete and utter dumpster fire. This team, Rudy Gobert's punching Kyle Anderson. Jaden McDaniels is fracturing his hand on the way out. Like, Rudy Gobert is now suspended for their play-in game against the Lakers. Pat, this is another, I don't even think this one's a hot take, but look, we've always looked back on that Celtics-Nets trade as the most lopsided NBA trade of all time. Pat, I don't even think it's close that this Rudy Gobert trade is going to go down as the worst trade in NBA history.
It tanked that team's chemistry. And, like, I understand it from a conceptual point. It's like, obviously, Cat's big, but he's a shooter, and he's soft, quote unquote. And, you could use an elite, Rudy Gobert might be the rim protector of the last decade. But, man, they have blended like oil and water, man. They cannot be on the court together, and just the locker room there's a mess. And to lose Jaden McDaniels now, who's been one of the revelations in the league this year, and especially the fact that now we'll get to it, but the fact that the Lakers are a 7 seed in the play-in tournament is terrifying for those other play-in teams. So definitely do not like their chances against the Lakers without Gobert. And then we'll have to see what happens. When they fall down into that final play-in game.
Yeah, it's just, I look at the return. So this Rudy Gobert trade, it was 4 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, 2023, 2025, 2027, and 2029. A pick swap in 2026, and Walker Kessler, and Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Bolmaro. It's just, between the fact that
is too much. The picks alone would be too
dude,
much.
At this point, Walker Kessler alone is too much. Walker Kessler's better than Rudy Gobert right now, and they had to give up essentially five first-round picks for him, because we know that pick swap is going to convey, because if the Timberwolves aren't, if the Jazz aren't worse than the Timberwolves, I'd be a little surprised. But this is insane to me, all that they had to give up to get Rudy Gobert, who has been nothing but a net negative to this team. I also got to give props to Danny Ainge, because he pulled off this trade along with the Celtics trade back in the day. I don't know if Danny Ainge is calling, hang up the phone, if you're the other team. Stop. Or at the very least, don't be giving this man more than one pick because he's trying to fleece you. And this makes so much sense too because I've made so many jokes with some of my Celtics fan friends about every year at the deadline, it was Danny almost Ainge. He almost made a trade. Yeah, it makes sense because he's not doing them unless he's fleecing you. Yeah. So he gets one done every 10 years, but it's just an absolute shellacking. It's wild. So this is a horrible, horrible trade. It's going to keep biting the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are probably going to get smacked here in the play-in game. Losing Jaden McDaniels just icing on the cake. We've got some other little news and notes here from the NBA. Bones Highland and Mason Plumlee were getting into it, former Nuggets. I don't know what's going on there, but Clippers chemistry obviously isn't great either. I feel like these teams, poverty franchise, these teams are just feeling the pressure. Okay, the play-in games, just to run through them real quick. We got Heat versus Hawks, Lakers, Timberwolves, Bulls, Raptors, Thunder, Pelicans. Pat, I'm going to give my predictions for all four, and then I'll let you. Actually, we'll just go game by game. Heat versus Hawks. I'm going to go with the Miami Heat in this one.
Yeah, I just think that they're going to be too much, yeah.
Lakers, Timberwolves need to be shot into the sun.
Yes, and we'll get to our further predictions. Again, we got to disclose Lakers fan here, but I think this should be easy work for them.
You live on the east of East Coasts, and you are a Raiders and Lakers fan. This is shambles.
And a Yankee fan, though, so I just pick all the best teams. Like, hello, I'm surprised I'm not a Cowboys fan.
I know, me too. You trade in one silver for the other, and you're all good to go. All right, Bulls versus Raptors. I'm going to go with the Bulls.
Oh, interesting. I'll go Raptors there. Bulls have not looked great lately, especially that game against the Mavericks, who, like, give me Toronto.
All right, at least we got a little differentiation there. And then Thunder Pelicans. Give me the Thunder. I think the Thunder have just been fighting back all season to be like, hey, we're good and we're not really sure why. Whereas the Pelicans don't have Zion. So
the Thunder have been the story of the league and have the brightest future in the league. I love that team. I call Jaden McDaniels the revelation of the league, but it is Jalen Williams who has been the revelation of the league. I hope they win. I hope they we'll get there, but I hope they make it to the 8th seed. I hope they're playing a full series.
I would agree. I mean, here's the thing. They'd have to play probably the Nuggets, and I don't really want to deal with them. Okay, we're going to go with conference finals and finals predictions. We're not going to go up and down the entire playoffs, but just want to get these in. So, Pat, who will you have featured in your Eastern and Western Conference finals?
It's funny. My West is very not chalk, and my East is literally chalk. I'm going to go with all 4 seeds advancing and give me that Celtics-Bucks matchup in the ECF that we all want to see so badly.
Okay. I'm going to go Bucks and real quick, I'm going to go Bucks and you know what? I'll take the Sixers. I'll take the Sixers getting over the hump just to not go chalk.
They need to get to an Eastern Conference Finals or else
Bucks Sixers
will be on the first bus out of there.
Yeah. All right. Now hit me with your West.
I'm going to go completely unconventional here. I'm very sorry to your number 1 seed Nuggets.
Rude.
I'm going to go Suns-Lakers.
Suns-Lakers. Okay. You are going with the ESPN dream matchup is what you're going with. The ratings darling of a matchup. And because of that, Pat, I'm going to go opposite, and I'm going to go Nuggets-Kings. We're going to go with the two disrespected teams out of the West. The teams, especially the Kings, like I can talk about Nuggets disrespect all I want, but the Kings are a team that it's like, even myself was confused how they've been a top 3 seed all year. I've got the Kings taking down the Warriors, taking down either the Grizzlies or the Lakers, whoever it may be, and then getting there and then losing to my Nuggets. NBA Finals, Pat, I'm going Nuggets-Bucks, and I'm taking the Nuggets. It's fine. It's finally time, man. Look, they've ended the season so poorly, and it is concerning because you want to see that momentum even when they are resting guys or whatever it may be. But it seems like the Nuggets got very careless as the season went along. I am just hoping and putting my stock in them bringing it up a notch now that the playoffs are here. Because I've seen this team at its peak, much like I saw UConn at its peak, and you just hope that it clicks again.
I'll go in my finals. I'm going to go Bucks and Suns rematch of the 2021 finals. I think the Suns, with Durant on the floor, they have looked terrifying. Those guys can stay healthy throughout it. I think they're going to roll. But I'm going to go with the Bucks to win the championship. Giannis.
All right.
It's crazy that he'll probably finish 3rd in the MVP voting, and that's fair, but he has just been fantastic, and they have the perfect supporting cast around him, so they're going to run it back in Milwaukee, in my opinion.
Got Giannis to get number 2. All right, I'm just here praying that Jokic gets number 1. Okay, we will finish things off as we always do with our viewer questions. Question number 1, Pat, this is for you directly from one of our pals.
Boy.
What is Pat's take on Brooks Koepka choking the Masters?
Oh.
God.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. That was man.
Really I got
ASMR.
Too. That wasn't good either. But, yeah, hopefully no one's watching this on video. Hot in here. Sorry. Even going back to before the live days, I have never liked Brooks Koepka. It was always this Brooks Koepka versus Bryson DeChambeau, and I didn't like either of them. Like these are these two kind of meathead macho men Chad guys who it's just like I don't like either of them. Koepka's a great golfer, one of the best guys in the game. But I'm just also very anti-live completely. You know, I was in a pool in the Masters and I picked 0 live guys and I won.
I love it.
You live guys. But yeah, just to see Koepka go up and throw up a 75, and it was going to be real interesting because they did their best to not acknowledge live at all. Seemingly, ESPN and CBS, they barely acknowledged live at all. They might not have acknowledged it at all. And what the hell were they going to do when the star of live wins?
Yeah.
So, I think they're happy with that. And as a guy who just doesn't like Brooks Koepka and a guy who had John Rahm at plus 850, I was very, very happy to see him just throw up that absolute egg when it mattered the most.
Shout out John Rahm. Shout out John Rahm. He saved us.
Have fun playing at the Portland Open or whatever the hell you're going next.
Oh, no. Yeah, shout out John Rahm, and that tweet from John Rahm was really cool too. I don't know if you saw from 10 years ago. He tweeted like a fortune cookie, and he said like I'm gonna win the Masters, and that was 10 years ago, and that's awesome that he called his own shot. All right, final question: Kanye or Drake? Pat, I know this is your kind of music, so. Pat is a classic rock guy, pretty much. So just so we're clear.
Obviously, I don't like to give Kanye much credit at all. But looking at Pete Kanye, like he might be Pete Kanye, it's probably hard to top him in terms of best rappers ever. So I'm not the guy. Come after me on social media, but I'm not the guy, but I'll say Kanye.
It's okay, Pat. I'm with you. Kanye had a better peak. Musically, I'm going with Kanye. Drake has had more longevity with not being crazy, but Drake also hasn't really released an album that I've genuinely liked in a couple years. So don't tell anyone that. This is at the end of the podcast, so hopefully nobody hears that. Okay. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode of Off the Bench, guys. If you are watching visually, I apologize you didn't get to see my beautiful face. If you're listening strictly on audio, which I know many of you do. If you're listening on audio, which I know many of you do, it's no different for you guys. But look, thank you guys for tuning in wherever that may be. We will see you guys right here again next week. For Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney. Adios.
Bye-bye.